The day I heard a child crying from under the ground, I honestly thought I was losing my mind. Have you ever heard something so wrong, your body moved before your brain even understood what was happening? Because that's what happened to me. And it almost got me blamed for burying a billionaire's son alive. I was in the rose garden that morning, just like always. The Caldwell estate sat there on Long Island, like it owned the sky all white stone and glass, the kind of place where the driveway is longer than most people's whole street. The sun was just starting to warm the tiles. The sprinklers had turned off. And it was quiet, that rich people kind of quiet, where even the birds sound polite. I was standing there with my metal watering can, whispering a little prayer under my breath, like I always do, asking God to stretch the money. Help my boy's doctor be kind. Keep these kids safe another day. Then I heard it. At first I thought it was just in my head, like a memory or a bad dream that followed me into the morning. But it came again, this thin, ragged sound, like a voice swallowed by a pillow. A little boy's voice, crying from the ground, right under the Caldwell rose bushes. You ever had your heart drop into your shoes so fast you feel dizzy? That was me. My hands just let go of the watering can. It slammed onto the garden tiles, echoed all over the patio, and my knees hit the dirt before I even decided to move. The soil under those roses was wrong, too soft, too loose, like somebody had dug there recently and never meant for anybody to check. My hands went in. First fingers, clawing nails, ripping dirt, filling the spaces between my knuckles. I wasn't thinking about anything fancy. Not about the laundry waiting, not about the rich man inside that house, not even about my own son back in our small apartment. Just one thought, loud and panicked. Lord, don't let me be too late. Then my fingers hit something cold and smooth. Not a rock. Not a root. Skin. A small hand. I swear my heart stopped for a second. Then it started again, louder than ever, pounding in my ears. I dug faster, dirt flying my arms, shaking so bad that if anybody was watching, they probably thought I'd lost my mind. I pulled away soil until a little blue pajama shirt showed through, then a small chest, a face smeared with dark soil. It was Ethan. Ethan Caldwell, the billionaire's son. That boy's face was pale lips, cracked eyes half closed, dirt crusted in his lashes. I hooked my arms under his tiny body and yanked him up out of that hole with everything I had left in me. I pulled too hard, too fast. His body jerked, his chest convulsed, and for a split second, he was just limp in my arms. Then he let out this scream, this broken, choking sound, like his throat was full of gravel. It hurts, he cried, voice hoarse, dirt spilling from his mouth. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry, I sobbed, holding him close, but trying not to squeeze him. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just had to get you out, Lord. Please. Please. Keep him breathing. I stumbled backward, almost falling, as I dragged him away from the open patch of earth. Dirt poured down his pajamas onto my knees, onto the tiles. His little fingers clutched at my collar, like he was still trying to climb out of that ground. Help, I screamed. Somebody help! A door slammed so hard the glass shook. Heavy footsteps pounded across the stone. I turned my head, still holding Ethan, and saw him. Richard Caldwell, you know the type. The kind of man whose picture shows up in magazines when they talk about tech money or hedge funds. Always in a suit, always composed, always a quote about legacy and family. The first time I met him, he was kind in that distant way. Rich people sometimes are, like he appreciated good work, but didn't really see the person doing it. That morning, he didn't look like any of that. His hair was messed up. His face twisted with something I had never seen on him before. Pure rage, pain, fear, all layered on top of each other. What have you done? He roared, eyes wild, voice echoing off the stone. I tried to speak, but my mouth felt dry, my heart pounding too loud in my ears. "Sir, I found him under the roses." I stammered. He was buried. I heard him cry. I dug him up. I swear I just pulled him out. "You monster," he spat. That word hit harder than the slap that came next. He lunged forward, ripped Ethan out of my arms. So suddenly the boy screamed again, this time in raw pain. I reached out on reflex, wanting to steady him, wanting to explain, and Richard's hand flew across my face. The sound of that slap still rings in my memory. It wasn't just skin on skin. It was a verdict. My head snapped to the side, cheek on fire, jaw throbbing. For a second, everything went white at the edges. I tasted blood. "You buried my son alive," he shouted, voice cracking. "You tried to kill him. If it were you standing there with dirt on your hands and a child you just pulled out of the ground, what would you have done? You think you'd stay calm, rational, explain yourself? I wish I could tell you. I had the perfect words. Truth is, I just knelt there, stunned, trying to breathe through the shock and the pain and the insult. He shoved me hard in the chest. I flew backward into the rose bushes, the thorns tearing into my arms, my legs, my back ripping straight through the thin uniform I wore. I landed awkwardly, air punched out of my lungs. I tried to push myself up, hands slipping on leaves and blood and dirt. "Mr. Caldwell," I gasped. I would never hurt Ethan. Never. I hurt him. I dug him up. I saved him. Please, you have to believe me. "Shut up," he snapped. "I trusted you with my children." And then came the second act of the show. Enter Celeste. She stepped out onto the terrace like a scene from a movie. Silk robe hair brushed to perfection, no smudge of sleep under her eyes. Everything about her was soft and expensive. She moved quickly to Richard's side, a hand on his arm, her voice filled with the prettiest kind of horror. "Oh my God." "Richard," she cried, staring at me like I was something she scraped off her shoe. "Maya, how could you? Ethan's just a child. I didn't do this," I whispered, throat tight. I heard him crying under the ground. I dug him out. I saved him. You expect us to believe that she said, covering her mouth like she was about to cry. "You were alone with him. You've been acting strange for weeks." "That's right," one of the other maids yelled from the doorway, voice shaky but loud enough. I heard her talking to herself again this morning. Another voice joined in. "She's obsessed with those kids, always staring at them." I knew something was off. It was like watching dominoes fall one after the other, all in the same direction. People who had shared staff meals with me, laughed with me on break, suddenly lining up on the other side. Like they'd been waiting for a cue. "Monster, child killer, get her away from here." The words hit me, one by one, harder than any slap. Richard turned back to me, his eyes blazing like I was the devil herself. "If Ethan dies," he growled, stepping closer, "I swear on everything I own your life won't be worth the dirt you dug up." My knees shook. I tried to stand, thorns still lodged in my skin, but the pain and the humiliation and the shock were too heavy. "Please," I begged, "just listen to me. He was buried when I found him. I swear to God, I didn't do this." "Don't bring God into this," he snapped. "You're fired, and you're never setting foot in this house again." My breath just left. It felt like someone had punched a hole in my chest and all the air, all the hope rushed out in one go. Fired. Not just from a job. Fired from the only stable paycheck I had. Fired from the place that gave me health insurance, the one I was counting on to help pay for my son's surgery. Fired in front of everyone, branded as a monster. I dropped to my knees in the dirt, hands folded, tears falling so fast, I tasted salt and soil at the same time. "Please, Mr. Caldwell," I said, my voice breaking. "My son needs surgery. I'm behind on every bill. I've been working extra shifts. I'm all he has. I would never hurt your boy. I swear on my life." Celeste stepped closer, her shadow swallowing me up. She looked down at me with that soft, pitying smile that somehow made me feel smaller than the dirt. "Richard," she said gently, "she's trying to manipulate you. Women like her know how to beg. It's what they do. Women like her." You hear that? Not Maya. Not the woman who had protected his kids for years. Just a type, a category, a convenient villain. Something inside me cracked at that. Not the slap, not the firing. That. Being turned into a caricature by someone who didn't know a thing about what it cost me to show up here every day. "Get off my property," Maya, Richard said. "Now." They walked away with Ethan clutched to his chest. Celeste pressed close to his side. Staff huddled behind them. Someone pulled the sliding glass door shut, and the sound of it closing might as well have been a cell door slamming. So that was the end, right? Not even close. Hours later, after they rushed Ethan to the hospital, after the ambulance sirens faded, I sat on the cold marble steps, near the side entrance, wiping dried blood and dirt off my arms with a damp rag. A police officer paced in front of me, asking questions, repeating the same ones over and over, like he was waiting for me to trip. "Where were you before you found the boy?" he asked for the third time. "In the garden," I answered again. I was watering the roses. I heard him crying from under the ground. You expect us to believe that he muttered, not even hiding the skepticism in his voice, as he scribbled something in his notebook. Inside, I could hear Celeste's voice drifting through the hallway, talking to the detective assigned to the case. "Maya has always been unstable," she said, her tone somewhere between worried and brave. "She talks to herself. She stares at the children's photos at night. I was afraid she might hurt someone, but I didn't think she'd go this far." I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Unstable. Obsessed. Dangerous. It was like she'd taken my love for those kids and twisted it into something ugly in front of people who were itching to believe it. Later, back in the tiny staff bathroom, I was scrubbing at the scratches on my arms when I saw a small shadow in the doorway. Sophie. Bare feet. Teddy bear tucked under one arm. Big brown eyes full of something that looked too old for her face. "Miss Maya," she whispered. I wiped my face quickly, tried to smile. "Hey, baby." She stepped closer. "Dad said you hurt Ethan," she said quietly. "He said you hurt him underground, 'cause you put him there." I swear my heart physically hurt when she said that. "Sweetie, that's not true," I told her. "I found him. I dug him up. I saved him." She twisted the ear of her bear, like she was scared of what she was about to say. "Celeste told me not to talk to you," she whispered. "She said Mommy's ghost is angry because you're bad luck. She said Mommy's spirit sees everything." I froze. Mommy's ghost. Sophie nodded, eyes shiny. "She said Mommy's watching and gets mad when people tell lies. She said you make Mommy mad." I took a slow breath so I wouldn't scream. At her. At the situation. At the world. Anything. "Honey," I said softly, kneeling so I could look her in the eye. "Ghosts don't blame people. Mommy's love doesn't turn into anger from the other side. And I don't bring bad luck. That's just something somebody told you to keep you scared." She looked over her shoulder like Celeste might appear out of nowhere. Then she stepped closer, almost so quietly I barely heard her. "I believe you," she whispered. "You know what I mean when I say that one sentence kept me from breaking. Everybody else saw a headline or a problem. That little girl saw me. And that was enough to keep me from packing my bags that night." Instead, I laid on my narrow cot, staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying every moment in my head. Ethan's scream. The feel of his tiny hand under the dirt. Richard's slap. Celeste's act. The whispers. The way the house felt heavier than usual, like it was full of secrets no one wanted to name. "Lord," I said into the darkness, voice shaking, "if you put me here, For a reason, don't let me run. Not this time. Because if I'm being honest with you, I had run before. From landlords who banged on the door, from bosses who yelled a little too loud, from men whose anger came with fists. I'd picked up my boy and started over more than once. But this time an innocent child had been buried, and someone had chosen me to take the fall. I couldn't leave. I needed to know why. The next morning, the mansion looked normal on the outside. Big, beautiful, rich. But the air around it felt like it was holding its breath. The garden was scarred rose petals crushed the patch of soil where I'd found Ethan still dark and uneven. The kind of scene people want covered up as fast as possible. I stood at the edge of the rose bushes, sleeves pulled down over my bruises. Staff walked past me without speaking. Some glanced and looked away. Others pretended I didn't exist. Nobody asked how I was. Nobody asked how Ethan really got there. That's when you understand how fast people can switch on you. One day they're laughing with you in the kitchen. The next day they won't even meet your eyes because they don't want whatever is on you to rub off on them. Do you think that's fair? I couldn't sit and wait. I went back to work like nothing had happened. Wiped counters, scrubbed mud off the foyer floor. Nobody had officially told me if I was still fired or not, and until someone physically dragged me out, I wasn't going anywhere. I focused on the tile, the sponge, the mess. Sometimes cleaning is all you can control when your life is in pieces. While I was scrubbing, I looked up and saw Richard at the top of the staircase. Suit, tired eyes, shoulders heavy. Our eyes met for a second, and I stood, my heart jumping into my throat. "Sir, I started. "I don't want to hear it," he said, voice low and raw. "Don't talk to me. Don't come near my children." I didn't hurt him. I tried again, my voice shaking. I pulled him out. I saved him. His hand pointed down at me like a sentence. "You think I care what you believe?" he snapped. "You think that cry was because you saved him? No. That boy was in pain because of you." Celeste appeared behind him like she'd been waiting for her cue, her hand smoothing over his arm. Voice soft. "She should leave, Richard. This is too much for the children. For all of us." He nodded once like he was too tired to argue. He turned away. My words died in my throat. All day the whispers continued. Staff huddled in the kitchen, their voices dropping whenever I walked by. Outside the gates, reporters shouted questions to a woman of faith accused of harming a child. Talk radio hosts debated whether I was crazy or evil, or both. People who had never met me decided what kind of person I was, based on a story told by someone who needed a villain. That evening, when the sky started to fade into purple, I went back to the garden. I don't know if it was smart or not. I just felt pulled there. I knelt down where I dug Ethan out and pressed my hands into the dirt, feeling the cool, damp earth under my fingers. "Why you?" I whispered. "Thinking of Ethan. Why did they choose you, baby? Why did they bury you and blame me?" My hand brushed something hard. Not a root, not a rock. Metal. I dug it out gently. A silver hairpin, long and curved, expensive fancy. On the back, engraved letters. I stared at it for a long moment. Celeste's last name here was Taylor. But something in the back of my mind tugged. A week before, I'd thrown away a pile of unopened mail piled in the staff office. One envelope had been addressed to E. Cortez. I hadn't thought anything of it at the time. Now, those 2 letters might as well have been a confession. "You ain't who you say you are," I muttered, closing my fingers around the pin. "And I'm gonna find out who you really are." In the laundry room that night, with the machines humming and no one around, I took out my old flip phone, the one with the cracked screen I kept in my pocket like a secret. I scrolled to the one number I had saved that wasn't family or a bill collector, Detective Ramirez. He didn't answer, so I left a voicemail. "Detective, it's Maya Johnson," I said quietly. "I know y'all think I'm crazy, but that boy didn't bury himself. And the woman upstairs, she ain't who she says she is. I found something. Call me back, please." I hung up, tucking the phone into my apron. As I did, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Celeste's voice drifted by low, but just loud enough. "Some people don't know when to quit," she said like a line in a play. Yeah, that happened. Now before I tell you how deep this all went, let me say this. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. This wasn't just one act of cruelty. It was part of a whole life built out of lies. The next few days were a blur. The house tried to move on, but you can't pretend something like that didn't happen. The kids stayed upstairs. Staff avoided me. Celeste floated around in silk and charm, talking to reporters, consoling Richard, leaving a trail of fake concern wherever she went. I started paying closer attention. Little things that might have seemed random before suddenly looked like puzzle pieces. One morning in the dining room, I brought in orange juice for breakfast. My cheek was still a little swollen, but I held my head high. Celeste sat there at the head of the table, robed pearls, like she'd been born in that chair. "Oh, there she is," she said with a sweet smile. "You're still here, Maya." Brave. I poured juice, ignoring the jab. "Yes, ma'am." "Richard and I were just talking," she said, voice light. "Given the incident, we feel it's best you take some time away. Maybe a few weeks. For rest. Reflection." "You mean leave?" I said without turning around. "Voluntarily, of course," she added. "No one wants trouble." My hand tightened around the pitcher. "I'm not leaving those children alone with you," I said, calm but clear. Richard's head snapped up. "What did you say?" "I said they need someone looking out for them," I replied, setting the pitcher down. "And I always have." "You're overstepping," Celeste said sharply. "No, ma'am," I said. Turning to face her, "I'm protecting." Silence. You could feel the air change. Sophie stared at her bowl. Ethan looked from me to his dad, confused. Richard stood up, fists clenched. "That's enough," he said. "You are staff. You are not their mother. You are not family." "Yes, sir," I said quietly. "And sometimes, staff are the only ones who notice what's really happening." I walked out before I started crying in front of them. Back in my small room, I pulled out my old spiral notebook. I'd been writing in that thing since the first year I worked there. At first, it was just silly stuff. Funny things, the kids said, notes about chores, odd little happenings like doors left open or toys moved. But the last few months, the entries had turned darker. Half-thoughts, weird moments, whispers. I wrote down, "Silver hairpin EC found near spot where Ethan was buried. Mail addressed to E. Cortez, not Celeste Taylor. Staff saying I'm obsessed with kids. Started after she got close to Richard. Ethan said, she said if I tell, she'll put me back." My phone buzzed. "Ramirez. Maya. He said I got your message. You said you found something." "A hairpin," I told him. "Silver. Initials EC. Doesn't match the last name she's using. I think she's not who she says." He was quiet for a second. "EC," he repeated. "You think that's Elena Cortez?" "I don't know who that is," I said. "But I know that ain't Taylor. I'll look into it," he said. "And Maya, be careful, be careful." Like I wasn't already walking on glass. Things kept getting stranger. One afternoon, Richard came to the kitchen looking more worn down than I'd ever seen him. "I need you to give Ethan some medicine before his nap," he said, placing a small bottle on the counter. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand. The label was half peeled, the name unfamiliar. "Dosify," I read aloud. "This isn't from Dr. Williams." "No," he said. It's from a specialist. Celeste recommended him. She says it'll help Ethan rest. He's been restless, sir, I said carefully with all due respect. Maybe he's restless because he was buried alive, not because he needs a new doctor. You're questioning my decisions now, he asked sharply. I'm questioning hers, I replied. This doesn't feel right. He stared at me, jaw tense. I put the bottle back on the counter between us. Ethan doesn't need to be sedated, I said. Voice soft but firm. He needs to feel safe. He didn't answer, just picked up the bottle and walked away. That same day, I slipped into the guest bathroom Celeste used. The counters were spotless, her perfume bead bottles lined up like soldiers. I opened the drawer under the sink and felt around. Hidden at the back was a small cosmetic bag. Inside, lined up neatly, were several pre-filled syringes. No labels, no instructions. Just silent, dangerous glass. My blood went cold. I reached for one hand, shaking when I heard the door creak behind me. I looked up, and there she was in the mirror. Celeste, I wouldn't touch that if I were you, she said lightly. I turned slowly. You drugging that boy? I asked, my voice lower than I expected. I'm helping him, she replied, stepping in closer. He's anxious, withdrawn. Children need balance. You wouldn't understand. Children need love, I said. And truth. She smiled, but her eyes were sharp. You think anyone believes you now? She asked. You're just the unstable maid. I'm the fiancé, the one who stayed calm when you lost your mind in the garden. I brushed past her, pretending my heart wasn't racing, but not before sliding a folded paper out from that bag and into my pocket. Later, I opened it in my room, typed letterhead. Name at the bottom, Dr. Emery Lachlan. Another name. Another thread. I called Ramirez again. Detective, I found syringes in her bathroom, I said, and a note from some doctor named Emery Lachlan. I think she's dosing that boy. Okay, he said slowly. We'll check on that name. And Maya. This is becoming more than just one incident. Yeah, I said. I figured that out. Then came the old nursery in the East Wing. I never liked that hallway. It always felt colder, even when the heat was on. One day, I heard a strange creaking sound coming from that direction, like a weight shifting somewhere it had no business being. I followed it down the long corridor, past dusty paintings and closed doors until I saw one that stood slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room smelled like dust and old dreams. A crib sat in the corner, covered in a film of gray. Toys were piled in a wooden chest. The wallpaper was peeling in places. It was a nursery, but not the one the current kids used. This one belonged to a different time. What caught my eye was a vent cover on the far wall. It looked newer than the rest of the room, like someone had replaced it recently. I walked over, knelt down, and put my ear to it. At first, nothing. Then a whisper. Faint as breath. Don't cry, a woman's voice said, barely there. You were bad, so now you sleep. My skin crawled. I slipped my fingers into the vent and felt around until they closed on something. I pulled out a crumpled photograph, stained and torn. I smoothed it out with shaking hands. In the picture, a young Celeste stood behind a little girl, maybe 5 or 6. Dark curls, big eyes that looked too tired for her age. On the back, scribbled in smeared ink, Elena Lilly, Rio de Janeiro. Miss Maya, a small voice said behind me. I turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, pale as the wall's bare feet on the dusty floor. Hey, baby, I said softly. You okay? He glanced past me toward the vent, and his face changed. Fear. Deep and old, like something he'd been trying not to remember. That's where she put Lily, he whispered. My heart stuttered. Who's Lily? I asked. He pointed to the photo in my hand. Her, he said. She cried a lot. Did you see her? I asked gently. He nodded. She was loud. Then she got quiet. Celeste said if I told she'd put me back in the wall like Lily. No child should have words like that in their mouth. Not ever. I called Ramirez again. Detective, I said there's a girl. Lily. Brazil. There's a picture of her with Celeste in our East Wing nursery, and Ethan says Celeste put her in the wall. Jesus, he muttered. We're pushing Interpol now. If there are missing child cases tied to those names, we're gonna see them. Piece by piece, the picture sharpened. Celeste wasn't just a manipulative fiancée with a temper. She was a woman with multiple names tied to multiple countries, with children missing in her wake. I dug in the estate's old storage crates one day and found a background check from 3 years back. Celeste Monroe. No social security number listed. References from some foreign charity. Photo matched her, though. Same smile. Same coldness around the eyes. No real roots. At the bottom of the crate was a small velvet pouch. Inside was another silver hairpin, identical to the one from the garden engraved EC. Not Taylor. Not Monroe. Cortez. I put it all together on my bed that night. The 2 hairpins. The toy truck covered in garden soil I'd found under Ethan's bed. The suspicious medicine. The syringes. The photograph of Lily. The background check with fake details. My notebook full of little moments of wrongness that suddenly looked less random. This wasn't an accident. I called Ramirez again. Detective, she's been here under at least 3 names, I told him. She's left a trail of hairpins. Kids fake papers everywhere she goes. We found sealed cases overseas under the name Elena Cortez, he said. Child deaths ruled accidental. Foster situations. Nothing stuck. She moves before anyone can pin it down. She's dangerous, I said. And she's sleeping upstairs from 2 kids who already lost their mother. We're putting pressure on every agency we can, he replied. But Maya, I need something solid we can use here. Something this state can't ignore. That's when I knew the truth in that folder wasn't enough. I needed a confession. Or something close. So I showed some of it to Richard. He sat behind his big desk in the study, that framed picture of his late wife on the corner. I laid the file down in front of him. Photocopies of missing children reports, passport pages, alias lists, the photograph of Lily. He flipped through it silently at first, like it was just paperwork. But the more he saw, the more the color drained from his face. She told me her little sister died in a fire, he whispered. She cried when she said it. She didn't tell you about Lily, I asked. Who is this? He asked, holding up the picture. Her, I said simply. Before she learned how to make funerals look like accidents. He stared at the page, hands shaking. My God, I need you to look at your kids, sir, I told him. Voice steady. Ask yourself if she sees Ethan and Sophie, or if she's seeing ghosts. He closed his eyes for a second, like he was trying to erase the last year of his life. When he opened them, they were different. Tonight, he said, I want you to keep the children close. Celeste and I are having dinner on the terrace. I'll get her to talk. If she gives us anything, we act. So there we were, string lights glowing over the terrace, a little speaker playing soft jazz, a bottle of wine between them. Celeste in an off-the-shoulder dress, makeup. Perfect hair shining under the lights. From a distance, it probably looked romantic. Up close, it felt like sitting front row at a trial. I stayed just inside the house, walkie-talkie on the table beside me. Kids upstairs already bathed and in pajamas. My heart thudded in my chest. To us, Celeste said lightly, raising her glass. To second chances. Richard didn't toast, just watched her. What was her name, he asked. She blinked. Who's the little girl, he said. The one in Brazil. Her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. Then her smile returned, just a little smaller. I don't know what you mean, she said. He held up the photograph. She looks like Sophie, he said. But she's not Sophie. She wasn't mine, Celeste said softly. She was a foster case. The system failed her. Did you bury her too? He asked. She stood up slowly. You're tired, she said. You're hurting. To accuse me of something like that? That's beneath you, Richard. No, he said, standing as well. Burying my son alive was beneath you. Something cracked in her face then. The softness disappeared. Her voice slipped anger seeping through. You should have let him go, she snapped. He wouldn't stop crying. He looked at me like she did, with those eyes that never let go. That was it. The slip. The crack. I shoved the door open and rushed out just as she grabbed the wine bottle arm swinging back. I grabbed her wrist mid-swing, glass exploding on the tile. You don't belong here, she hissed at me. Neither do you. I shot back. We struggled for a second, the bottle shards crunching under our feet, before Richard yanked her back by the shoulders. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed, getting closer. Ramirez had been ready for this. Police came through the gate a minute later. Celeste didn't fight. She just straightened her dress, lifted her chin, and smiled like she was walking a runway instead of into a squad car. You think this ends with me? She called out as they walked her away. You think I'm the only one who ever lost something and wanted it back? No, I said under my breath. But you're the one who buried a child to try and get it. They dug up more of the garden that night. Under one corner near the hydrangeas, they found a small box. Inside were children's bracelets, tiny toys, a pacifier wrapped in lace, relics of someone's babies. Maybe Lily, maybe others. Evidence of a pattern the world had let her repeat. Back inside, I climbed the stairs to the kids' room. Ethan was awake, eyes wide open in the dark, clutching his stuffed dinosaur to his chest. Is she gone? He whispered. She is, baby, I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. She's not coming back here. He reached out a small hand, and I took it. Sophie rolled over and blinked at me. Miss Maya, she said sleepily. You're staying, right? I smiled through the tears I'd been holding back all day. Ain't nobody moving me now, I told her. A week passed. Then another. Reporters moved on to other stories. The Caldwell estate got quiet again. But this time, it wasn't that heavy. Fake quiet. The kids started laughing again. Ethan chased butterflies in the garden without looking over his shoulder. Sophie read books out loud under the sycamore tree, making up voices for the characters. Healing isn't quick. It isn't clean. But it started. One night, Richard sat on the porch while I brought him a cup of coffee. The sky over the property was streaked with orange and pink, and for a moment, everything almost looked normal. You ever think about leaving Maya? He asked. Every day, I admitted sitting in the chair next to his. Not because I want to, but because sometimes staying feels like holding a lightning rod in a storm. You saved my son's life, he said quietly. You could ask for anything you want. I chuckled a little, shaking my head. All I want, I said, is for the truth to stay told. Not buried in some file or under some rosebush. He took a sip of coffee, eyes on the yard where the kids were chasing fireflies. The press is quiet for now, he said. We kept most of it sealed. Ramirez agreed to make parts of the investigation private while other charges move forward overseas. You think that's wise? I asked, turning to look at him. Because from where I'm sitting, the more we bury, the more we give people like her room to grow. He nodded slowly. You're right, he said. And this time it felt like he meant it. Not long after, I got a padded envelope from the correctional facility where they were holding Celeste. Inside was a letter. Not to Richard, not to the judge. To me. Dear Maya, it began, they say, when a woman breaks, she shatters in silence. But I was never silent. I screamed on the inside for years before I did anything wrong. You think I'm a monster? Maybe I am. But monsters are made, not born. You don't know what it's like to hold a dying child in your arms and know you can't fix it. I didn't bury Ethan because I hated him. I buried him because I saw the same panic in his eyes that Lily had, the same fear, the same cry I couldn't answer. You stole the ending I wanted, but maybe you gave them the one they deserved. Do what you want with this letter. I won't write again. I folded the paper and put it away. Because here's the thing. I can understand that someone is broken. I can understand that the system failed them, that they were hurt first. But understanding does not turn a grave into a bed. It doesn't turn a shovel into therapy. It doesn't erase the dirt from a child's mouth. Then the FBI showed up. Agent Keith Dunham. Behavioral analysis. Serious eyes. He stood in my kitchen like he was checking for ghosts. We've reopened a set of cold cases, he said. Foster children gone missing across several states. In each case, there's a guardian tied to names like Elena Cortez, Lauren Chase, Maria something. You're Celeste. My Celeste, I repeated a little bitter. She hasn't spoken since her arrest, he said. Won't answer our questions, won't negotiate. But she made one request. She wants to see you. I laughed a short, humorless sound. Of course she does, I said. She wants an audience. We have reason to believe she may know the location of other missing children, he said. Possibly even Lily, if she's still alive. We're asking for your help. You want me to walk into a room with the woman who tried to bury a boy and tried to ruin my life, I said. And you want me to dig up truths you couldn't reach. She trusts you, he said. Or at least she reacts to you. That's leverage we don't have. Fear isn't the same as trust, I said. But she does hate me. And hate is still a kind of attention. I looked out the window. Ethan and Sophie were painting rocks on the back steps, making little faces on each one, and arguing about which rock looked most like a dinosaur. They deserve to live in a world where girls like Lily aren't just shadows in someone else's story, I said. So yeah, I'll go. The prison was cold, in a way that had nothing to do with air conditioning. Concrete fluorescent lights, metal doors. They led me to a small visiting room with a plexiglass divider and 2 phones. She walked in wearing beige prison clothes, hair pulled back, face pale. No silk, no pearls, no performance makeup. But the tilt of her chin, the way her eyes moved, always calculating, that was still there. She sat, picked up the phone. I did the same. I was wondering when you'd come, she said, giving me a faint smile. You always had trouble letting things stay buried. I didn't come for poetry, I said. You asked for me, so talk. Everyone else wants a confession, she said. You want the truth. There's a difference. I want to know what happened to Lily, I said, and to all the kids who disappeared around you. She leaned back, studying me. You carry rage like perfume, she murmured. I carry loss. I carry your victims, I answered. In their eyes, in their nightmares, in the way my hands still shake when I see dirt piled too high. She watched me for a moment. I hear her in my sleep, she said finally. Lily. Her voice, her footsteps, the way she used to breathe like she was afraid the air would leave her. Is she alive? I asked, my voice just so steady. That depends on what you mean by alive, she said. Is she dead? I repeated. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she placed her palm on the glass fingers spread. She was the only one who never asked me for anything, she said softly. Not even love. She just existed, like a shadow that liked me back. You're not getting out of here, I said. You know that. So why keep her secret? Why hold on to the one thing that might actually help someone now? Because the only thing I have left, she whispered, is that I still matter to someone. Even if that someone is gone. You don't matter to anyone outside these walls, I said. And I meant it. Out there, you're not remembered. You're feared. The kids you tried to reshape are finally learning to live without your story in their heads. You're not the main character anymore. They are. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes that looked almost like hurt. Or maybe just ego. "If there's anything human left in you," I said, "if there is any part of you that still knows the difference between protecting and possessing, you'll tell me what happened to that girl. To Lily. You owe her that." She sighed. Then she said, "There's a bus station locker in San Antonio. Greyhound terminal. The key is taped behind the radiator in my old apartment under the name Maria Lenz. Inside the locker is a box, her hospital bracelet, some drawings, a piece of her hair, and a journal. Mine. That's all I have left of her. Is she alive?" I pushed one last time. "If she is," Celeste said quietly, "she's not the girl I knew. The Lily I knew disappeared long before you ever met me. That version of her is gone." The guard signaled our time was up. She hung up the phone and walked away with that same strange composure. I sat there for a moment, listening to the buzzing lights overhead, feeling like someone had opened a door halfway and then slammed it shut again. I went to San Antonio. We found the apartment, found the radiator, found the key. And in that locker at the bus station, we found the shoebox she'd described. Lily's hospital bracelet with Lily C on it. Crayon drawings of a girl and a woman under crooked rainbows. A tiny lock of dark hair tied with a rubber band. And the journal. "This is not a confession," the first page read. "This is the autopsy of my soul." I read it all. How Lily had been dropped into her life as a relative she barely remembered. How the girl liked to sleep in closets with the door cracked open because big rooms felt unsafe. How she talked to someone in the mirror she called Other Lily. How the state tried to remove her after suspected abuse from someone. How Celeste fled with the girl instead of cooperating. Then one night, Lily was just gone. No note, no clothes missing, just vanished. Celeste waited 3 days before calling anyone because she hoped Lily would come back on her own. She didn't. Was Lily dead? Maybe. Did Celeste kill her? Maybe not. Maybe the worst thing she did with Lily was try to love her in a way that felt like a prison, and the girl chose disappearance over possession. But after that, I think something inside that woman snapped for good. She came here, found new kids, tried to rebuild a story that ended with a child under her control. Ethan crying in the dirt. Sophie haunted by mommy's ghost. All of it a twisted sequel to a story that started long before I ever set foot in that house. Back home, we planted a single white rose bush in the garden, near where they'd found that box of tiny keepsakes. At its base, we placed a small plaque for the names we carry for the ones we remember. It didn't say Lily. It didn't say any specific name. It wasn't a grave. It was a place, a promise, a way of saying, we know you existed, and we won't pretend you didn't. Richard went to his lawyers, came back one evening with a thick envelope. We sat at the dining table, the kids in the next room coloring. I spoke to my attorneys, he said. I want you listed as their legal guardian if anything ever happens to me. The trust, the house, everything connected to their care. It goes through you. My hands shook as I opened the papers. You sure about this? I whispered. I've never been more sure of anything he said. They've already survived more than most adults. But with you, they're not just surviving. They're becoming who they were meant to be. I looked over at the doorway. Sophie leaned in, listening. Ethan peeked from behind her. There was hope in their faces I hadn't seen since before the dirt. I love them like they're mine, I said. They are, he answered. These days, the Caldwell house looks like any big rich home from the outside. But if you walk into the backyard, past the rose garden, and the white bush with the little plaque, you'll see something else. A row of wooden signs painted by a child's hand. Tommy Tomato, Bella Bean, Captain Carrot. The kids decided our vegetable garden needed names. On the last fence panel, Sophie took a thick marker and wrote 3 big words. Letters. Crooked and full of heart. Home means safe. My throat tightened when I saw it, because for a long time that house was anything but. At night, when the kids are asleep, sometimes I sit on the back steps and listen to the wind move through the trees. I take out the old locket my grandma left me, the one that used to be empty, and open it. Inside is a tiny folded piece of one of Lily's crayon drawings. A rainbow. 2 stick figures holding hands. I wrote her a letter I'll never send. Dear Lily, I wrote you were never invisible. Not to me. Not to them. Not anymore. I don't know where you are, if you're alive, if you grew up, if you ever got to sleep with the closet door wide open and feel safe. But I want you to know we said your name out loud. We planted a flower for you. We made sure the woman who tried to fix her pain with children faces the consequences. You were the beginning of the truth, and we are the ones who refuse to let that truth be buried again. So that's my story. A maid, a billionaire, a fiancé with too many names, a little boy in the ground, a little girl in the wall, a house full of secrets turned into a home built on remembering. Now I want to ask you something. When people say monsters are made, not born, how much blame do you put on the making, and how much on the monster? When someone has real trauma, real pain, and the system fails, then does that explain what they do to others? Does it excuse it? Where's your line? When a rich man ignores his instincts because the person in front of him is beautiful and wounded, do we judge him softer than we judge the maid who raises her voice at the wrong time? And what about the kids caught in the middle, used like bandages to cover someone else's wound? If it were you out there in that garden with dirt under your nails and everyone calling you a killer, while the real danger smiles from the terrace, would you have stayed and fought? Or would you have run? Do you think justice was really done here? Or do you think more of this should have been dragged into the light? I genuinely want to know. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you think Celeste was pure evil or a broken person who crossed a line no pain can justify. Tell me if you think Richard deserves forgiveness. Tell me if you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, especially by someone who had more money, more power, more influence than you. Tell me if you've ever met someone who used love as an excuse to control. And if this story made you feel anything, anger, sadness, hope, confusion, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so we can keep talking about the messy, complicated truths the world usually tries to bury. Because as long as we keep telling these stories, as long as we keep digging, the truth doesn't get to stay underground.